So I figure I would touch back with my precious little Democrats and see how you guys are doing.
I think that's part of his goal is he's using tariffs as a weapon. So you're going to have missed signals because you're not going to know how people are going to respond.
Trump's not going to be on the ballot in 26. Trump might never be on the ballot ever again.
Lifting up his own stock, BJT stock. And, if you had invested $15,000 the day before, you would have made over $60,000 on that trade alone based on his tip. I'll just say that Martha Stewart went to prison for much less. So
I think they really got a boost from Signalgate.
It's good because it hopefully will incentivize production in the United States. It'll incentivize investment in the United States. It needs to come with an offset of American taxation.
If the Republicans had lost, I would be, sympathetic to them because they would be crying their Republican tears right now. Hi everybody, this is John Koenig back, Real Veteran News 48. If you'd like to help out, please watch the whole video, leave a comment. Thanks, appreciate it. For this week, I'm not going to talk too much because I spent a lot of time talking to Mason about the tariffs, and we had a good debate between Mason and Robin. That also took some time too, so I'm going to try to keep this short. I don't really want to talk about tariffs because I talked a lot about all my ideas about tariffs with Mason. I've been thinking about what to talk about this week. Not too much else other than the tariffs and all that catastrophic economic news. So I figure I would touch back with my precious little Democrats and see how you guys are doing. I've been kind of watching the Democrat response a bit. Obviously, I did, if you've been watching, a long kind of like what should the Democrats do now kind of monologue a month or two ago or something like that. I think the Democrats are doing better. They're starting to kind of come to acceptance with what's happening, kind of settling into a rhythm, some protests. Protests look good, and so on. So, again, I mentioned before, too, that I'm not a conservative or a liberal. I'm independent, and I just want to reiterate that if the Republicans had lost, I would be sympathetic to them because they would be crying their Republican tears right now. So, it's just, I agree with some things. I just am my own person. And I'm kind of, I feel for the Democrats a bit. In part of me is kind of glad that they didn't get it because there's some things I agree with the Republicans on. But some of this other stuff, especially with these the effects of the tariffs on the bonds, is really worrying me. So that's worrying too. But for the Democrats, I see some new potential leadership bubbling up. Things have calmed down a little bit. Still got the old people in charge. It's not a really clear path exactly what's going on. There's some experimentation going on. I get that. I think they really got a boost from Signalgate. That kind of showed them that, this Trump team is going to make mistakes and that they can capitalize. And I do really think Signalgate hurt the Trump team, not fatally, but it really hurt their view of their competency. And then now with the tariffs, it is kind of like this cowboy presidency and him playing games with people's money, him not caring about the stock market until it got too bad or whatever like that. I think that the Republicans are starting to get to the point where they're going to start making some of these unforced errors, these own goals. I think an area that's really ripe is when they start digging into Social Security. A lot of people are emotional about that, and I think the Democrats can make a lot off of that. They're going to cut Medicaid. They're going to cut stuff for poor people. I don't think you make much headway in trying to be the voice of the poor people and try to prevent what's going to happen to poor people under this Republican trifecta. But the one kind of core war fighter, this is a war, politics is war. The one piece of advice, the one piece of analysis that I think is just most important here is to realize that it's a long fight, to not overreact to every little thing, because that makes you kind of like the boy who cried wolf. You're not going to get some kind of Richard Nixon, Watergate, we got you moment. The Trump presidency isn't going to crumble overnight. You're not going to have some kind of gotcha. So it's going to be a kind of stockpiling of issues of stating your positions in opposition to what him and them are doing, and to set the stage for the next serious election, which is in 26. And it's not that far away. It'll get started next year. They've got a few months here where they can kind of do whatever they want. But, it's not too far away, and things can be undone eventually or whatever. It's not the end of the world. I don't think it makes sense to call him an authoritarian and fascism and overreact all the time. I think you gotta not necessarily just be like centrist Democrats, but be reasonable. Be like, we don't agree with these people. This is why. In the moment that it's happening, say, this is why we don't agree with this. This is what's going to happen. This is how we would do it differently. Let it play out, and then capitalize on the fallout later, because they're going to make mistakes. Focus on economic stuff. Don't focus on the crazy social stuff. And, get ready for that war of attrition. I mean, this is like a war of political attrition where he has a slight, majority of independents that kind of put him over in some Midwestern states in this last presidential election, but it's going to be a little bit different in the congressional elections, in the off-year election, and chipping away through attrition and chipping away some of his voters. He's not going to have the same turnout. Trump's not going to be on the ballot in 26. Trump might never be on the ballot ever again. And just chip away at it, position yourself, and you'll be in a good spot. Don't overreact when he says he's going to do a third term, or he says he's going to deport U.S. citizens, or all this stuff. He's just saying stuff just to occupy the space, suck up the oxygen, distract the opposition. Like, got to stay focused and keep it tight. All right, now it's time to talk tariffs with good old friend Mason Ballou, who first person doing videos with me, talking about the news, military veteran news. How you doing, Mason?
Good. How are you?
You want to introduce yourself real quick?
Sure. The Air Force component of the show, usually the only one.
Yep.
Also a bit of an economist. Got my undergraduate degree from the Air Force Academy in economics. And I regularly read economics books. So this is kind of a topic near and dear to me. And I actually kind of disagree with conventional logic in this one. So
by conventional, okay.
Well, conventional logic is any tax is negative, right? Like tariffs, there being a form of taxation, just creates a market impediment, which is always bad. But I think tariffs are one of those very unique things where sometimes a tax can be a good thing.
All right, well, we'll get into it. We shot the debate first, so Mason shot some of his ammo. I'm going to get going first, get the conversation started here. So we're talking about the Trump tariffs. A lot's happened last week. We actually shot a tariff video last week, but I had a software issue or something with my camera, which made my video unwatchable. So that video will never see the light of day. And fortunately for Mason, because I trounced him, because in that one. But I'm hoping for a more able opponent this time. So, Mr. Economist, to get started here, we're going to jump right into it. The way I boil this down, stock market is fluctuating, wild swings in the stock market. Okay, mostly came back or whatever. But the bond market is a big problem here, especially with the bond holders in Asia. And they don't like how Trump is acting. We're mainly talking about Japan and China. Japan holding $1 trillion of U.S. bonds. China holding $760 billion U.S. bonds. They have decreased their bond holdings by about $250 billion since the pandemic. I don't know why exactly, but obviously they're trying to slowly get away with it from us without losing too much of their money. Bond yields on the 10-year treasury, which is kind of the foundation of the entire financial system. It's the only place that people in the financial markets consider to be a safe haven, where it's like, I need to park my money somewhere. I'm going to put it in these 10-year treasury notes, right? So people are starting to rethink that because of Trump's behavior, basically. Not necessarily the tariffs. The tariffs can come off. The tariffs can change. But Trump's art of the deal bullshit, and his arrogance and his stupid tweets and his willingness to just do whatever he feels like with ill regard to anything has spooked these investors. And it's not just the common people. Like, all the people in the retirement homes aren't going to be able to buy up all the Trump bonds to make up for China and Japan. These are countries and major investors that have responsibilities to make sure their money is safe. And they're starting to rethink the US dollar, which has also dropped almost 1% against bag of currencies, which is not a good sign either. The dollar dropping and these bond yields going up, not great. So what I'll say, Mason, is I know we've had a lot of conversations. You said the national debt is the greatest national security threat to the United States, right?
Correct. I've also said that this would be the first step of economic warfare that China would do, is liquidate their U.S. assets, trying to plunge the dollar's value.
Okay, well, they can't do that by themselves, but they can hurt it a little bit, and they've done a little bit of that, so you're right. But, okay, so we're saying the national debt is a national security threat. We know that the service on the debt is more than the entire defense budget right now, right? We both agree on that?
Yes.
So Trump acting like an asshole, pissing off our friends and enemies and everyone in between all at the same time, acting recklessly, the bond yield rate going up on our debt and our future debt, because we have to issue new bonds to pay off the old bonds, because we're basically cycling our debt. Is that not a national security threat? I mean, if these bond rates go up, we're not going to be able to pay this debt. Like, that's like the nightmare, sum of all fears scenario. Are you seeing that, what I'm seeing, or what?
I agree that if that's the way, like one of the machinations of how it falls, what confuses me is I think of bonds as being monetary policy and tariffs as being fiscal policy. So they're not really related. I mean, they are in the sense that they're both economic valuations. There hasn't been manipulation of the federal funds interest rate, and that would be what would impact the bond market, I would think, as well as any printing of money. And there hasn't really been a huge fluctuation in that since Trump took office. So I'd be surprised. I'm surprised to hear of any impact there as a result of the tariffs.
The argument that I'm making here is that Trump's behavior, you made this distinction between fiscal and monetary. Trump's behavior on fiscal has spooked these people and has caused effects in monetary, which he wasn't trying to do, right? But again, he's not really a strong thinker and he's not strategic. He just goes out and spouts a lot of shit and does this impulsive bullshit. And he's really threatening the basis of our economic supremacy in the world, especially by tariffing every single country in the world. Like,
which I love.
Okay, would it not have been better for him to pick a fight with China first, then start picking off one by one? Why did he have to piss off everybody at the same time? Answer that, please.
Well, it makes people immediately want to shift production to the United States more than ever. Because if he did one country at a time, they're like, well, we'll just move it to Vietnam. We'll just move it to Thailand. But no, now they're like, oh shit, we should really just think about moving it to the United States.
Well, couldn't it just unite them in a trading block against us? I mean, if he pisses off everybody, they have something in common, which is they fucking hate Trump because he's a fucking asshole and there's nothing redeeming about him. So
politicians can't think like that except in the United States. And in the world, if you're a global politician with the power of impacting tariffs, access to the United States markets is huge. China is one of the only countries that can maybe handle it, but access to American markets would be a very large component of any country's GDP, whereas like for the United States, it's almost nothing.
Yeah, but the argument you're making, if they need access to U.S. markets by isolating individual countries and then leveraging the fact that they need our market, we win that, and then it's divide and conquer strategy. There's no strategy behind smattering tariffs all over the entire world all at the same time. Like, you have to admit that. Like, it doesn't make sense.
He hits the whole world at once. Like, I think that's pretty fair. That is a strategy. You have the ability to do it all at once, do it all at once.
What's the benefit there versus divide and conquer?
Maybe there's none, but it gets done. Sometimes it's better to just get it done.
He wants tax cuts, and he wants this bill. He wants a lot of things, but especially the tax cuts. He wants the inflation down. He wants the interest rates up. So why do this first? Why not pass the tax cuts, get the economy cruising, get the other stuff he wants, and then do the tariffs? Now that he did the tariffs, all of the Congress people are queasy and like, what the fuck? You know what I mean? And they're all going up there with their, fake, like, Trump's a genius bullshit. And now he can't get the tax cuts through or anything. So inflation's going to go up. He's not going to get the tax cuts. He's basically sabotaging himself and the economy.
So again, taxation doesn't impact inflation. Those are two separate policies. So the reason why you do it first is because this is going to have a negative impact on the economy. So all this does is it's going to be a negative shock to GDP. Any tariffs that go up will be a negative shock. So in the short term, that's going to be a negative to the economy. And he needs to offset that. Probably the best way would be to lower interest rates. The Fed, they're run by morons. And so they're not going to do that unless they see like a gross need to do that. They might, in the event that they can say that they're saving the U.S. from a recession, they may lower interest rates.
They're definitely going to lower interest rates. Okay, you're making this distinction between inflation and prices or whatever. Okay, maybe it's not like proper inflation, but like the tariffs are going to drive prices up, which is effective inflation. He's not going to get the tax cuts. Like you're talking past this. The strategy was do the tax cuts once the economy is humming and cruising along at a good clip, then do tariffs. Ideally, one at a time, not all at the same.
We still need tax breaks. They should lower.
You do the tax cuts first, man. Like he fucked this up. He botched this. He screwed up his own strategy, and it's not going to work. Like this is not going to work. And they're like, "Oh, the stock market's back." The stock market's not back to where it was at all.
It's probably a little overvalued.
I mean, so what? Like, why would you want to like kneecap it? I mean, it doesn't make any sense. Why is he interfering in the stock market? I mean, the argument wasn't against the stock market's overvalued. It was these countries are ripping us off, which there's some of that going on. But at the same time, we're still the richest country by far, most powerful country by far. This was totally unnecessary.
It's good because it hopefully will incentivize production in the United States. It'll incentivize investment in the United States. It needs to come with an offset of American taxation. They need to replace the tariffs. Like take the amount of revenue expected to be generated by the tariffs and pass it on to the United States taxpayer in the form of tax breaks. Ideally, ending the income tax, but the very short term lowering it, and that's how you offset it.
Okay, so if the tariffs were so good, why did he pause them for 90 days and then also eliminate them for smartphones, semiconductors, tablets, large screen TVs, all stuff that comes from China, basically? By the way, so he basically just smashed the stock market, spooked the bond market, and then rolled everything back. He was like, oh, we're going to keep it on China, so he seems tough. But then he just rolls it back on all their electronics, which is essentially what they're selling us. Huh. But he still fucked the farmers. He fucked our people. You know what I mean? Like, what strategy is that?
If tariffs go up, I think that's good for the U.S. right now.
You're just talking past what I'm saying. You're just not even addressing what I'm saying.
No, what I'm hearing is that he hasn't actually done anything with tariffs, and that's sad.
The plan's not good, dude. He basically rescinded his plan. He put it back. He paused everything on all countries except China, and then he put an exception on electronics and all this stuff, which all comes from China. Semiconductors come from China, and on top of that, he's so stupid that he didn't realize that all of the semiconductors come from China. Mature semiconductors come from China. So he pissed China off and he's like, oh shit, we need these semiconductors. Like he's figuring this stuff all out after the fact, which is half cocked.
Well, that's pretty much how most politics is. We've done episodes in the past where they talk like, oh, if you want to know what it is, you have to pass it, right?
Nobody does this shoot from the hip bullshit, especially in the international financial markets. Like this economic power that we have is the basis of our national supremacy over the world. It's not the military. The military is a byproduct of the fact that we are rich. We waste a lot of money in the military. You know, if some other country had more money than us, their military would be better than ours. It's not like the American soldier is some super soldier that's invincible against bullets or something. It's just a money thing, you know, and he's threatening our supremacy vis-a-vis China.
What he needs to do is have blanket tariffs and offset it with cutting domestic taxation in the form of the income tax. That's what needs to happen. We need to shift the burden of taxation to people who use U.S. markets. Because right now, you think about everybody makes fun of like U.S.'s military spending. A lot of that is spent to make waterways open. Navy does a pretty good job there. And so we're already a subsidy for the entire world's global trade anyways. We might as well offset it with a tariff.
All right. Well, you're not addressing my arguments at all, and you're just saying tariffs are good. So I'm going to take that as a win.
I'm just trying to give a reason why we would offset it. Sorry.
It was done. It was sloppy, stupid. He didn't know what he was doing. Anyway.
He shouldn't have rescinded them, but I think he got what he wanted.
He had to. All right, look, let's talk about something a little bit different, right? So he paused his tariffs, which essentially he's going to keep pausing them. That's what he does, right? This is his pattern he has. So he's basically backtracked on the tariffs because it was a bad idea in the first place, and he couldn't sustain it with his political capital. So then he tweets on his tweet or whatever. He says, "Great time to buy," right before he's about to make this policy thing. So he knows that the stock market's going to go up And he says, great time to buy, right? So he's like telegraphing that this is going to happen essentially, right? So in my analysis here, first off, he's essentially priming his own social media and his own voice to say, like, watch me, watch what I say. Like, I'm gonna leak secrets. Like, I'm gonna telegraph what's happening. So like, always pay attention to me. Give me your eyeballs. Give me the attention. And that is attention economy. That's gonna boost his company. That's gonna boost his just the number of people that pay attention to what he's saying. It's like, you better pay attention to me because like I'm gonna leave these little Easter eggs in my communications, and if you get one, you might get rich off of it. The second thing is he's inoculating his buddies and the congressmen and all the little government people that knew that this was going to happen 1, 2, 3 hours before it happened, because people were going to find out about it in DC. He's going to call his friends. He's going to tell them. He's going to give them a wink and a nod. They're going to shift their money. They're going to make money. But when the SEC or the regulators come in and they're like, you're doing insider trading, they can just point to Trump's tweet and be like, I wasn't insider trading. Trump tweeted it. I just took Trump's advice. And that way they can just get away with it scot-free, which is basically enabling them to rob all like the retail investors and all of the people who didn't follow his advice, that didn't have that insider information. They're basically looting the stock market like in a Batman movie. And then the last thing is that the next time that he tweets or the next time that he says something, the market and all the people are going to follow what he says. So he's basically retaining for himself the ability in the future to swing the market one way or another. Be like, oh, you better buy now, you better sell now, you better do this, you better do that. And people are going to think it's like last time where they better follow what he says or they're going to lose money or they're going to make money or whatever. He's basically anointing himself as this like leaker of market information, which everybody's going to be like watching like a hawk, which then it feeds into his like attention economy, like all eyes on me bullshit, right? Like presidents shouldn't be doing this. It's nonsense. He's robbing regular fucking people, you know, for his buddies and just to like aggrandize himself and just to build up his whatever and whatever you want to call it. What do you think? It's a great time to buy. What do you think?
I mean, if it hadn't worked, if the economy had still been had gone down, everybody would have been like, I just think they're upset that it worked.
Dude, everyone knew what was going to happen. He pulls the tariffs back. It's going down because of the tariffs. It's obviously going to go back up when he says no tariffs. Like, that's a given.
I'm waiting for all that to stabilize because I think we're still going to have some tariffs. There's going to be some market down.
Dude, it was like a 10% swing in the market. It was the biggest market gain since like long time ago, whatever it was. It doesn't matter. People can make basically 10% in a couple of hours just by like doing this, and they can't even get in trouble for insider trading because they just can point to Trump's tweet. Like they're robbing people, dude. It's robbery. You don't believe in that?
I mean, I see both sides of it. I don't see it as it being that big of a deal.
They're on TV laughing about it. Trump's on there laughing about, oh, my friends made so much money. People who listen to me made so much money. These billionaires are up there with him, like chuckling. They're like, oh yeah, we made so much money. Like we're so smart. No, you motherfuckers are insider trading motherfuckers, swinging off Trump's balls. You know, playing games huge. And just like stealing money from like regular American people. It's like theft. It's white collar crime.
It's how being close to power pays.
Yeah, with Trump, that is how it pays. Yeah, that's right.
Oh, it's right. Not as though a lot of people didn't make money off the Biden. How much are Hunter Biden paintings going for right now?
You're doing what about Biden right now? That's
right. How much are Hunter Biden paintings going for right now? Yeah.
You're going to Hunter Biden paintings? Okay.
I just think that those probably lost some value recently.
They had no value to begin with. Okay. Last thing, the farmers, right? Like, how many farmers do you think voted for Kamala Harris? It's in the negative numbers, right? Like, the farmers obviously voted for Trump and all that. The farmers are getting double fucked because they can't sell their crops, and then to fix their machinery, they have big machines and they've got like this industrial operation on their farms and everything. All those parts come in from Mexico or here, there, Asia, whatever. Tariffs on the parts. So they're paying more for their expenses, and they can't sell their shit. Like, what do you think about like how his plans and everything affect American agriculture? And these are good people. I mean, maybe they voted for Trump or I don't really care who people voted for, but like they're good normal American people. They're not these fucking billionaire assholes in suits, doing insider trading. Like, the farmers aren't doing insider trading. They're just trying to sell their little plants.
Same thing I've been saying. The tariffs need to be offset by a reduction in the income tax.
You talking about the fucking income tax, dude? I'm talking about the farmers, man.
Yeah, and I'm talking about it too, because that's how you save every single actual industry in the United States, including farmers, is by offsetting it with a reduction in domestic taxation, such as the income tax.
So again, you think the national debt is a big deal, and then it's a threat to national security. You think Doge is doing a good job. You think Doge has saved a lot of money, which it hasn't.
It hasn't yet, but I think it's highlighted it. But the money was already approved in the congressional budget, and once it's approved, you can't just take it away. Hopefully, in the next budget, that stupid stuff won't be spent up for, won't be in there.
All right. So in the first Trump term, he put some tariffs on China or whatever. And look, I'm not saying all tariffs are bad. If you have a good strategy, you know what you're doing, whatever. But he hurt the farmers so bad in the first Trump term, they had to give the farmers, just give them $28 billion.
There's always a bigger story there.
Okay, there wasn't $28 billion of condoms for Gaza or DEI operas in Peru or whatever. This is $28 billion because Trump wanted to lay some tariffs down on China, doing this or doing that. We just gave it to them to just waste their crops or whatever. They can't even sell their crops. $28 billion would just come straight out of the national deficit, the deficit and the national debt. What do you think about the $28 billion?
I don't really know the details of that story.
How much do you think he's going to have to pay the farmers now to offset the farm stuff?
I'm not familiar with the story. So they paid $28 billion to farmers for lost crops somehow.
Yeah, farm subsidies, agricultural subsidies, which is very common in the United States.
I think we need to get away from those.
Yeah, I mean, ideally, but we have our agricultural subsidies, which, you can debate or whatever like that. But this $28 billion in agricultural subsidies was just because of Trump's tariffs the last time, which were way lower than what he's doing now. Last time, I think he put 20% on China. Now it's up to 125%. And China's not going to buy any of our shit. That's soybeans.
Let's say you lower the income tax in those locations where
Well, they don't have any income anyway. So what are you going to tax? I mean, why? And you know what I mean? They're not selling their soybeans.
All I'm saying is that would be, if you do the math, that would be an example of how to offset it right away. You get rid of the tariff, you get rid of the subsidy, and you also get rid of their income tax, and pretty much offset.
You basically put them out of business.
No, that would offset because they're not paying income tax.
They don't have any income because they can't sell the soybeans. That's why the government is handing them $28 billion. The government's basically buying their soybeans because China won't buy them because China was like, all right, you want to fuck around? We're just going to buy soybeans from Brazil.
So tell them to grow a different product next year if they can. I'm sure it's not that easy. No,
Farmer Mason.
No, I don't. But I'd be like, is there a possibility? I don't know. If it's not a market efficient product, are they going to keep growing them for no reason?
Dude, we make soybeans and corn. That's what America makes. All right,
I'm sure we can make more than that.
Agriculturally, that's what we make.
We grew cotton once. I'm saying,
all right.
So now we can grow more than just soybeans and wheat and corn.
I mean, that's what we got here. That's the last of my points, man. What do you have any final stuff on this?
I'm a huge fan of shifting the tax burden for paying for the United States' bullshit onto international work. Offset it again by removing the income tax.
Okay. All right. We'll make you the Secretary of Income Tax. So,
should we go?
All right. Yeah. All right. Well, that's the end of tariff talk with Mason. We're going to move on to our veteran debate with Robin. So thanks a lot. All right. Now it's time for the veteran debate portion of the show. We've got Mason Ballou, Air Force veteran, and Robin Byro, Army 75th Ranger veteran here too. This time, Robin, we got you on the left side of things after our last thing with Chuck, when you guys were agreeing. So you've got your bona fides back, and you can argue that hard left position again.
I'm good there.
So, yeah. All right. So let's introduce ourselves. Mason, you can go first, then Robin.
As you said, I'm the Air Force guy. I also have a background in economics, so I'm kind of excited to talk about the tariffs, even though I might not say the mainstream ideas.
Yes, definitely not mainstream. Robin?
Yeah, Robin Byro here from Atlanta, Georgia. I also am a commercial real estate appraiser in my background, so I've also got a good grasp on economics here. Well, let's get into this. And I do a lot of television, just political punditry on Newsmax mostly.
Yes, you're OD'd on tariff talk, but
It's okay. Yeah, I got it. Locked and loaded.
all right. So the three topics are obviously the Trump tariffs. We're going to talk about the U.S. Iran nuclear attack, whatever talks, and then the gender neutral PT standards. Pete Hegseth, Secretary of Defense, signed an order saying that men and women have to compete at the same physical fitness standard in the across the military, especially for combat. So those are three topics. Mason's going to go first. We're going to start with tariffs. So Mason, you can get started.
I absolutely love the Trump tariffs. I think it's a really good political and economic move. I think that's the foundation of our country is using tariffs to raise revenue for the federal government. It was only in 1911 that we started using the income tax. I think we need to get back to that. We need to stop looking at basically citizens as a piggy bank for our leadership to do whatever they want, for our government to do whatever they want. And so I really like it from that perspective, shifting the burden to people who choose to use external sources would now be paying their burden. I just hope that it comes with a lowering of the income tax, because any shift in a tariff like this is going to have a huge impact on consumption spending. Ideally, it'll trigger investment spending in the United States to offset it. But in the short term, I think you're going to have to use either monetary stimulus, which I hate, or in the income tax so that people have money in their pockets to spend to replace that lost in the tariff. So there needs to be some offset. And I would say income tax reduction would be the best.
I also am not opposed to tariffs, and I have to be intellectually honest about that because the Biden administration retained 91% of the Trump tariffs from Trump's first term as president. But we need to be smarter about the way we're implementing these. A news story just came out yesterday that the tariffs that went into place, no tariffs were actually collected at the ports of entry. That's a huge problem. And you saw what happened this past 10 days with the stock market and crazy market fluctuations. The stock market just hates uncertainty like that. So I've got issues with how things are rolling out. And just yesterday, in fact, they paused tariffs on a lot of Chinese electronics. So I'm just getting mixed messages from this administration, and I think it's confusing.
I think that's part of his goal is he's using tariffs as a weapon. So you're going to have missed signals because you're not going to know how people are going to respond. But the markets have pretty much reset to where they were. So it's not like, oh yeah, it was volatile for a couple of days, but that's really good for pundits. It didn't really matter for the market at all.
I had a problem, though, when he was filmed in the Oval Office with a bunch of billionaires around him, and they were all talking about how many billions of dollars they'd made with the market. And let me just say that my best friend is Melissa Armo. She owns her own stock brokerage in Manhattan. She's voted for Trump 3 times. She lives in Trump Tower. But she called so totally pissed off and called it market manipulation. I've never heard her speak ill of President Trump, but she was really pissed about this. And I think there is cause for concern here with that.
This was her first time ever speaking ill of him?
She's towed the line every step of the way until this past week. This is the first time I've ever, in all my years of being friends with her. I debate her on TV all the time, so it was just shocking to me to hear her come out so opposed to what's happening with the tariff rollout.
I think that's part of the plan. I think it's using it as a weapon again, so you're not going to telegraph your move. And actually, in a lot of ways, he is telegraphing his move, and he's letting other people respond.
Mace, is there anything you don't like about the tariffs and the way it was handled?
No, I think they need to increase it, make sure that it's, like you kind of mentioned, the points of entry. I'm not really sure how they normally enforce a tariff, but I didn't want to go into all those details. But I just hope that they also include data tariffs and actually make a point to put a tax on data exiting and entering the country. I think that would be very important.
I need to bring up one thing that I've had an issue with. Like I said, I'm not opposed to tariffs, but I see some dishonesty from the administration when they're holding up those big charts that show these numbers that seem astronomical on their face. And they've said that they include non-tariff barriers, but when you just do the simple math, they don't. Non-tariff barriers include things like embargoes, quotas, licenses, standards and regulations, subsidies, anti-dumping policies, and rules of origin policies. Those are all things that should be excluded from tariffs, but they've added them in and padded them into the rates to make it look like their tariffs are much higher on us than they are in actuality.
Mason, first, what do you guys think about the great time to buy tweet? And then what do you think about that?
I think it was a great time to buy in hindsight.
No problem. All right. Robin, what do you think about that tweet that Trump put out?
There was a lot of concern about that, specifically because he was lifting up his own stock, DJT stock. And, if you had invested $15,000 the day before, you would have made over $60,000 on that trade alone based off of his tip. I'll just say that Martha Stewart went to prison for much less. So that's a problem. At the end of the day, it's at least not a good look for the office of the president. And I guarantee you, if Joe Biden had done anything like that, there would have been hell to pay from my friends on the right.
All right. Well, that's the last word on tariffs. So
I would say good thing that he didn't mention a specific stock.
it's still a fucking bitch move. Like, he's robbing people. He's robbing all the normal people and like tipping his friends off.
Yeah, the ones that we didn't get into that. The ones who could afford to hold made money.
All right, great discussion, guys. The next topic is Iran-U.S. nuclear disarmament talks. And Trump is starting these. They're happening in Oman. And the talks described by Trump are going okay / pretty good so far. So we'll see what happens. But starting off with Robin.
First of all, I'm glad that the talks went productively, and that's including on behalf of Iran. They said that the talks went really well. They have a follow-up meeting scheduled for this coming Saturday. I'll be anxious to see how that goes. Of course, all my friends on the left are saying that Trump is doing the bidding of Israel, and that's his only point of concern here. I just want to say I have concerns about nuclear disarmament because of what happened before when Ukraine, for example, went into an agreement with then President Bill Clinton to disarm their nukes in agreement with Russia, because Russia certainly didn't abide by that policy. So I think it opens some doors here that, can you take them for their word? I'm not sure, but I'm eager that the talks are going well, and I want to see where things lay out with this.
I've heard it includes disarmament of nuclear disarmament for Israel, and there's no way that's going to happen.
Right.
Like, they're not going to. It seems to me like it's a non-starter, and it's just talk that's never going to actually go through. I think there's too many people that want World War III, and if you probably want it sooner rather than later.
That's one of the things that I think is going to be their biggest crisis to avert here, is that Trump ran all three of his times running for president as a non-interventionist president. And, he's made it very clear that he'll accept nothing less than total disarmament here. And I just don't see that happening. I'm glad to see that you're, have realistic expectations about that too. But like I said, he won based off of being a non-interventionist president. And if we can't seem to get there, I'm really worried that we might be looking at going to war over this.
I agree, and that'd be a very big disappointment as somebody who voted for him this last time because of the whole non-interventionist component. So that'd be a big letdown. But so far, he's done a pretty good job in manipulating politics in his favor, and there isn't a war there. But the whole ceasefire didn't exactly last very long. So we'll see. But I don't think it seems likely that it will ever happen. But I also say that a nuclear Iran is terrifying.
Yeah.
That is literally kind of, in my opinion, the best way that the sum of all fears plot happens is nuclear Iran. And it'll be less about negligence and more about deliberate. That is a tough decision where I would never want to see Iran have nukes.
So the Israelis don't have the military assets to actually attack Iran 100% on their own.
Right.
So they need us to hold their hand. They need our tankers, probably some of our specialized munitions, which they buy from us, essentially.
They would need us to defend them while they attack, probably.
Is that defending them? Flying them into another country to blow up stuff and kill people? Mason went last. Robin, what do you think about us helping Israel to strike inside Iran?
I just know that this is going to be tough. My friends on the left are going to be freaking out about this. This is one of the reasons we lost this election, right? The presidential election was because the left was so splintered on this. Most all of my friends are more concerned about Palestine. This is a lose-lose situation for us here on the left. But I'm worried about the world, the globe here, what happens with these talks. And I just hope so I'm really happy. The envoy that they sent to do some of the talks seemed to be really level-headed. I'll give them that. The talks seem to be going well. I just kind of have my hope and prayer that President Trump sort of stays out of it, and let's calm our cool heads prevail on this.
And nuclear Iran is terrifying, so I would support Israel in attacking that and making sure that doesn't happen. Seems like a very easy way to do that, but it's also the fastest way to really get World War III kicked off. I believe it's already going.
Let me ask you, why is a nuclear Iran terrifying, but a nuclear Israel is not terrifying?
Because Iran is an exporter of terrorism, and Israel, for the most part, is not an exporter of global terrorism. The way they treat the Palestinians is probably needs reform, but it's definitely not terrorism, I don't think. Whereas Iran actually works to support global terrorism.
All right. Okay. Any final word, Robin?
No, just let's see how this plays out. I'm really eager for these talks to be happening this coming Saturday. But we all need to be really doing some heavy praying on this one, because this has global ramifications.
I think Iran is going to get schwacked.
All right.
They've been launching missiles for the past how many years?
Yeah.
Pretty much since we left, they've been launching a couple hundred missiles a month, it seems like. And everything else they've been supporting. One missile recently fell short in Saudi Arabia, right? Launched by the Houthis in Yemen. So it seems like it's already on and we're just waiting until we actually punch back. And nuclear Iran cannot be allowed to happen.
The good news for Trump is that he's supposedly, as far as we know, not running for re-election in 2028 unless they change the Constitution. So,
He's enjoying that. He's enjoying that troll so much.
but yeah, like if they do go to war, I think this would be a problem for the GOP strategically in the years following that, if that were to happen, because wars aren't popular. They're good for the economy, but wildly unpopular with the United States people.
Every second that the left is talking about a Trump third term, that is an asymmetric warfare victory for Trump, because they are talking about something that makes him sound ludicrously amazing.
I think that it's all bluster and hot air, but it's going to get the furthest left people. That's all they're going to be talking about for the next 3.5 years. So it probably was a good move on his part. But is it serious? I don't really think so.
All right. So you guys agree that it's the Trump third term is a red herring?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Great talk on U.S.-Iran. Next, we got to talk about Pete Hegseth's DOD order to sex neutralize the PT tests across the military, especially for the combat arms. And the plan is for the services to come up with a plan within 60 days and then implement that plan within 6 months. So it's going to happen pretty quick. People are saying that this will greatly reduce the number of females in combat roles, and probably that is the goal. So Mason's going to go first.
I really like it because I just think that there's certain roles that need to have a distinction, where if there's a standard of being able to meet a certain physical fitness standard, especially like team type drills, then it needs to be enforced. That being said, my job is, I was an IT nerd, so there was no need for that in my career field. I don't think it'll have the disparate impact that people are foreshadowing. There's always going to be like a bit of hyperbole in that respect, but I think it'll filter out the people that you need to have filtered out. And again, they can always go back and try like more regular career like what I did. So yeah, I actually am a very big fan of the policy. I would say maybe not a complete ban on transgender, because again, it's like whatever they can actually accomplish, let them accomplish. But I don't like an outright ban in that respect. But otherwise, I think it's a good move, because it always pissed me off when it was like, why do I have to do this if they don't? Even though it didn't really bother me, I would, the PT test, if you can only do the minimum, it's probably need to improve your fitness. But it still just annoyed me that I had to do more.
I got out before the new fitness test went into effect. So I'm curious to see results now that we've had some time with it, how that's affecting troops by itself, just the new revised PT test. I myself was, support at Ranger Regiment. I was a legal specialist. So this didn't affect me directly. But I will say this, I'm genuinely surprised here that Pete Hegseth didn't just ban women in combat arms outright. So I think that this was a better move, a step in the right direction, because if there's some beast females out there that can keep up with just general standards, then fantastic, let them have at it. I've had to debate this on television quite a lot over the years, women in combat roles. I've always said, that the muscular skeletal frame of the female body can't support the same combat load. I've had concerns about that. So, let's see how this plays out. I think it's a step in the right direction, and he surprised me for once. And the winner of the tariff thing was Pete Hegseth by getting all the talk off of Signalgate.
Yeah, Signalgate blown out of the water. So,
yeah.
All right, Mason, you want to continue?
Sounds like Rob and I agree here. And yeah, Signalgate, I think that was also blown out of proportion. It wasn't even him it wasn't even Pete Hegseth that made the mistake.
Yeah, I want to touch something that Mason said about the transgender troops, because that was something where I'm surprised that we found some agreement there too, that I don't think all transgender troops need to be banned. If they can cut the mustard and meet all the standards, then have at it. I certainly didn't serve with any in Ranger Regiment, but in the reserves I did, and they did a brilliant job of organizing our arms room and supply rooms. I mean, those were complete piles of crap before they got there, but they had something to prove to everybody. They had to work a little bit harder, I think, than the rest of the troops, and they really just did a great job for us. And I was disappointed that they might be facing getting thrown out, because those were some of the best we had of my bag of shitheads in the reserves.
All right, sounds like all three of us agree that women and transgender should be allowed in the military generally, but we're talking about kind of this special set of the military that does combat special ops,
right,
where people's lives are depending on their physical abilities, among other things. So just quickly, I guess Mason first, women in combat, transgenders in combat, you can lump them together. But I mean, should combat just be conducted by cis men, or is it open to others?
I think it's open to others as long as they pass the physical fitness test, because you're definitely not going to kick out women fighter pilots.
Is a fighter pilot the same as someone who's humping on the ground? I mean, realistically, anyone can fly a plane, right?
That's all I'm saying. But I agree with you. There's certain career fields where that needs to be 100% the standard. and it needs to be no distinction by gender or anything. And there's some where maybe you can have the distinction.
Also, when's the last time a fighter pilot died in a war?
Yeah,
Robin.
valid.
It happened a couple of times I was actually just got a notification about like a academy grad who died when it said it was like a plane malfunction, not necessarily a combat getting shot down. But
So I actually have some concerns here though about it, because like I said, can the physical frame of a female body handle humping on the ground, like you said? And will that lead to more claims in the VA and ultimately, costing the United States more money? If they can do it, if they can hump the load, then by all means do it. If they can meet the same standards, hell yeah. I just think, Mason, that some of your friends on the right, I think, would take issue with some of your policies here.
I agree.
I'm pleased to hear a reasonable position on this.
I will also say, just like as a combat veteran, that not all men handle the rigors of combat and they get PTSD, and we have absolutely no idea how women handle combat PTSD versus and I've seen very tough men that go down on that too.
So have I, and in fact, I just one of my Ranger buddies came here and stayed with me this weekend with his fiance Corey Cunningham from RSTB, and we had the same discussion. We were debating the same thing, and he was talking about that very thing. Can they handle the PTSD, the emotional aspects of warfare, of seeing people die in person? That remains to be seen, really. He was very strongly suspicious that men are more capable of handling that than women, but I think that remains to be seen. Interesting distinction.
All right, any final words from Mason?
I just found that that's such a very specific argument. Like, can they handle this one graphic detail that it would be hopefully the extreme unlikely nature of the job? But it's like, that is such a nuanced question that nobody could ever answer that correctly. Like, nobody could be like, well, of course. I mean, like, there'd be no background data, no stuff. So it's just like one of those ludicrous arguments that makes something unwinnable as far as an argument goes. And so there's no way that any woman could be defended in that argument.
Okay, so all right. Robin, you got any final words on this?
I kind of want to meet some of these women, honestly, who want to try out for this. These are some bad bitches that I want to see in real life.
There's some tough women out there.
Yeah, I know. I want to meet them.
Yeah. I feel like when you join the military, that's kind of like part of it. You're like, holy shit, this chick is like, yeah, like there's some tough bitches in there.
Yeah.
All right. All right.
John's never been tapped by a girl. That's what just happened. John never got tapped by a girl once.
Never pegged?
Yeah.
I did like an actual combative tap.
Oh yeah. Okay. All right. I went to somewhere different in my brain.
Yes, never pegged, never tapped. Never.
I think it's far more likely that John has been pegged than he has been tapped. I would say that.
Honestly, that's probably fair. It's going to be probably easier to peg it down than tap it down. All right. Okay, so that's the end of our topics here. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thanks, John.
I guess, Robin, you got any final farewells here?
No, it was a pleasure. Mason, it was really good conversation. It was refreshing.
As well, Robin.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Much respect. Enjoy your day, guys.
Okay. All right. Yeah, Mason, you got any final farewells?
I'm mostly a fan of what the administration's done. Still looking forward to the release of the Epstein files.
Yeah, me too.
Oh, yeah, you keep waiting on that.
Yeah, no shit.
All right, great. Well, thank you guys. That was Real Veteran News 48. Thank you for watching. Please watch again next week. Thanks a lot. Bye.